With respect to Ukraine and Russia is what Trump's going to do, obviously. You talked about General Kellogg and his previous stance, which seemed to be to freeze the front lines as they presently are and hold off allowing Ukraine to join NATO. I wouldn't have thought that this would be acceptable to Ukraine. Pulowski is actually a Ukrainian name. I would just say that what the Ukrainians would expect would happen in that scenario would be that Russia would just build up its forces again in a few years, take another bite of Ukraine. So there'd have to be, I think, for this to be acceptable to Ukraine, to be some sort of other peacekeeping. Has Canada contemplated, or has NATO contemplated? I guess it could not be NATO, but is Canada contemplating the possibility of bringing peacekeepers or using peacekeepers along the border between Ukraine and Russia? Because I would have thought that would be the only kind of scenario that would make this acceptable, because that would deter a further attack from Russia.
Mr. Chair, I mean, I've done peacekeeping. You need a political agreement between both sides before tactical people can get in the middle and create peace, and we are a party to the conflict. We have been contributing extensive weapons. That being said, we, like the rest of NATO, are watching what's going on there and monitoring. And trust me, NATO is making lots of plans because they also share that risk that give 5 years, what Russia has proven to date could happen again. Maybe not against Ukraine, but other allies, including some where there's thousands of Canadians right now. So we're paying attention to that, and it's good to be in alliance with 31 other countries.
I don't know if you'd tell me whether it was true or not, but is the Canadian Army drawing up contingency plans to possibly use Canadian troops as peacekeepers?
Mr. Chair, again, peacekeeping is a very specific thing. Did it in the 90s. There's a monument downtown Ottawa for a very specific situation. We have been contributing weapons to Ukraine since the further invasion occurred in February 2022. And normally, as a peacekeeper, you are neutral, I say in air quotes. So tactically, that would be very challenging. And as has been noted, number one, would some of the things being suggested be satisfactory towards Russia? Equally, would that be satisfactory towards Ukraine? There'd have to be a lot more water under the bridge before we decided that was even a possibility.
Your assessment of how the North Korean troops are doing in the Kursk region, it seems like the Ukrainians have hit them a number of times. There's, what, 12,000? How many do you figure are still left?
Yeah, thanks for your question, Mr. Chair. So we don't have precise numbers. What we are attuned to is once the 12,000 were set, they were the subject of intense observation and targeting from Ukraine to try and sever that linkage between the DPRK and Russia. We continue to monitor the situation. What we have seen is that the DPRK has broken down their contributions, and we're seeing them employed now in smaller groups within larger Russian units. And incidentally, alongside many Russian soldiers that are coming from the Far East that are forming aggregate organizations that make it more challenging to try and identify where the DPRK troops actually are serving.
Briefly on the new Syrian leadership, what's your assessment of their current links to al-Qaeda? And certainly the new leader has shown some indication for wanting to take a more moderate approach. I think Canada would surely like to see a democratic, moderate state in Syria. What are we doing to encourage that? Because certainly it could go either way.
Okay, I'm going to give that a try, and maybe my global affairs colleague would like to. Again, this happened over the weekend. Nobody was really expecting this. We are watching it, and like I said, the initial signs are very promising. You didn't see massacres as they started taking retaliation against regime forces. We're seeing heart-rending things about the prisons, etc. That's all ongoing right now. Initial signs are very positive. That being said, is there any tradition of democracy in that country? I'm not a historian in that sense, but initial signs, it's looking good, but I'll throw over to my friend here.
Thanks. If I could just add a few points. I mean, throughout the conflict, while our embassy has been closed in Damascus since the beginning of the conflict, we've still kept Canadian diplomats have had contacts and exchanges with members of civil society in Syria. And obviously, those have been engaging with those contacts throughout the weekend in the past few days, and we'll continue to be able to sort of liaise and understand what the situation on the ground is from their perspective, and sort of use that to build our information, to understand how things are going, and to work with allies and partners, again, in terms of how eventually we can support this transition to what we hope is a better future for Syrians. So